Um, but I don't I don't have like what I want this to be. I just want to take the opportunity to bring resources into this community to do the work we've all been trying to do for a while. So um what would you like to see? Or what do you think would be fair? Or what do you think would be beneficial? Maybe you don't have to.
I don't know. I don't have a clear vision for this. Um, it feels just so broad to me, um, a little unfocused, and so I don't have a clear vision for it. But I'm trying to, and so that's why I'm like, okay, is this position going to live at Land of Sky? If so, are they going to then implement this like commercial program after the initial analysis? Um,
That's a really, really good point, Jackie. So this is a 3-year grant. And I think implementation is going to be a longer term strategy. So I was talking to them today, like, okay, Waste Production Partners is already kind of doing some of this work. Like, let's write into the grant where that the limitations of what Waste Production Partners are, and like, help NREL pick up where that is already happening and where the gap is or where, the limitation is. Um, and so I really want to make sure that one, BHPCC is really the implementing body, because I think there's enough different stakeholders that convene here that we all hold a piece of long-term implementation, So that's one way we can ensure that kind of we're all still a part to this. So Land of Sky is applying on our behalf. And um, I think that the work to do the community engagement is what that $500,000 is for. And if you could see a role the county playing to maybe assist or add credibility to the community engagement, I would want, if that is an additional capacity need, to make a section in the proposal that allows you to do that work, or someone on your team to do that work. So that's kind of I hope that gets more specific, ways that I could see that work being, like a demand on staff time might be, NREL can use public records to do some of the data analysis. They also have some data that they can use, and then we are trying to figure out an arrangement with Duke Energy where they're also maybe able to complement with whatever data they're able to share. But if someone from the city or the county staff needed to actually like help NREL gain access to that information, like that might actually take some time, or be the point of contact at the city and the county, or city or the county, that might take some time. I wouldn't imagine that the community outreach and engagement where you're actually going to community meetings and speaking, I think that we kind of need a project manager for this. And I imagine that person would be housed at Land of Sky with a bulk of the funding going to them for that position. But it's $500,000 over 3 years. And with HR costs, that is still more than I think one FTE per year. So that doesn't mean that there's not additional funding available for other people that are using paid time to support the grant.
Jump in with the question.
Yes.
500 is the total amount. 40% of the project is for TA from NREL.
500,000 is for community engagement grant for the community. 3.5 million is the amount of TA from NREL.
Because NREL's portion would be easily 500.
Yeah, no, the 3.5 million is their technical support.
Yeah. So there really won't be program implementation from this. Like what we'll really see is like we're gonna get the precise amount of data that we've been dreaming and wanting to get for a long time, because we keep having really big high level goals, but we don't have the data to help us get like precise and targeted. So theoretically we would get a lot of very targeted data and analysis that could then build foundation for strategy.
Yes, and I think there may be opportunities to apply for additional funding for implementation. I also think that the presence of this information really drives private sector investment. And that was initially where this kind of, when I saw this grant and I was at the state energy conference, an HVAC installer who does large industrial and commercial and residential buildings in New York City, so big residential buildings, was prattling off the amount of financial investment needed to make New York City 100% electrified. Where did he get that number? Someone did some analysis to give him that number. And now that's a job, that's a career, that's an industry that has that information to work with. So I think, while I don't have a clear picture of how best to roll that out to the private sector, I know that it is a tool that is beneficial. I also hope that through the study, we're able to identify voluntary participants that are in the private sector. And commercial industrial is a good way to think of it. I don't want to leave out large housing developers. And we're going through such a boom cycle right now that I'm not sure if that qualifies as commercial, if they're building residential units, but if they're multifamily, that's kind of an area where we don't have programming because we're doing so many single family residential right now, not to get too confusing here. But there are tax incentives for those folks right now. So how are we taking this information to also help shape our policy platforms moving forward? Like Maggie, you and I and Brownie and folks from Mountain Housing Authority spoke a lot about what it would take to, and we wrote that into the strategic plan, what it would take to actually do some improvements in our land use policy going forward. And I think that if we write that into the grant, NREL might be able to also help us in some way provide data to enable us to make those changes long term. So if it's a financial ROI calculator, if it's, some sort of site spec stuff on where there's really good solar production, I'm not sure. And that if it seems broad and vague right now, it's because I'm trying not to be too prescriptive in that way, because I don't know what will shake loose with true technical advisors on our team, but keeping the door open for that kind of input. Because again, I think implementation is so important, and it's something where we have to leave this process with something geared up for implementation, and policy drivers is one of the tools we have, and then private sector investment is the other. So I'm hoping to spur both of those through this language.
The timing could be nice too, because we know that we don't know 100%, but Mountain BizWorks is pretty well positioned to $20 million for commercial lending around clean energy, and that they, I met with them Monday, and they're saying that they might sign their first loans by January 2025. I think that's optimistic, but we're going to see a huge amount of clean energy finance for the commercial sector across Western North Carolina very soon. And so I think that as we see a lot of action happening and we're doing this type of data analysis, it'll just be a nice convergence.
I actually had Mountain BizWorks on my radar to try to bring in to maybe do a letter of support. And I was considering how to actually include that in the grant application. Just, there's a bit in here about context of the community, and Mountain BizWorks is such an important part of our community. Can we follow up on maybe getting that together?
Yeah.
There's Mountain BizWorks, and I think they're part of a larger CDFI group, but there's an Appalachian cohort of lenders that's come together that received a lot of funding through the Inflation Reduction Act, and maybe Mountain BizWorks is that's being channeled through them. There's also the Green Bank, though we're doing more private or more residential investment. And then there's a couple there's some stuff at the state energy office. There's a lot moving up there, which is resources. And I think my hope is that NREL can help us develop a clearer picture of how to pull those resources into the community too.
Okay, I'm still trying to wrap my head around this. So maybe you're gonna bring in NREL. They're gonna identify some target industry or group of commercial businesses based on community identity and culture or equity or just impact. We don't know yet. That hasn't been defined. And then we're going to dig in deeper on like facility level analysis and be like, this is your ROI on renewables and electrification and battery storage and energy efficiency upgrades. That's the plan.
Yes.
Okay.
And the way I've described the pathways into the program, and I don't know if I've written this, so like if you guys are seeing like this doesn't say that, that's a good flag. We could identify those people through Duke, right? Duke might be able to, through their large or high user program or industrial commercial users, all the things that are outlined in the RMI study, they could be like, cool, it seems like you might be a good fit for to be a voluntary participant in this in-depth partnership with NREL and the BHPCC. Sign this release, we'll turn over your data, and we'll do some sort of calculation for you. That's one pathway in. Another pathway in might be, okay, Pisgah Energy has already provided this commercial facility with solar, and how are they making the most of that investment in solar? Clearly, they're thinking about electrification, or they're thinking about clean energy, or they're just thinking about their energy demand. What are the other things in that facility? So we could maybe work with our renewable energy sector partners to identify potential voluntary participants. The other way could be through the Manufacturers Alliance or the Brewers Alliance or the hotel lobby or association, whatever it is. So like doing the community organizing to identify the voluntary adopters is the concept. And then if it's a community like a municipality, maybe the county would be the best party to reach out and just explain the program. And then if they're wanting to participate, then we would bring them in. So that's having the capacity to do that engagement work, I think, is the idea.
Michelle, to your I guess question about FTEs, is that something we need to clearly delineate and define now in advance of the application, or is it something we can define later? The exciting part about this to me now as we're talking, but we don't have a lot of time to work through it. So
we don't have a lot of time.
Yeah.
Yes, we don't have a lot of time, and I want to say something about that. But I think from the feedback, so just a couple of things I want to make you guys aware of. There was a meeting with an NREL representative, and one thing they shared was as crystal clear as you can get how this is going to work, the stronger your application will be. So it didn't ask for a budget, but if we could put a budget in there, great. If they do ask for you to define roles and like, do you have the authority to take action on this? And if I could say that the city and the county government are actually going to receive funds and be part of this, that is higher level of authority. So we are a stronger proposal for that if we can pull it off. If we can't pull this off, like pull off the perfect right now, they do expect to offer this grant again next year. The political context matters, but that their intention is to offer this again next year, and every application is going to get a significant amount of feedback. So I want to write this application to our best of our ability to win, but I also want to get it in so we can get feedback. So next year, if we don't win, we're for sure going to win next year, because this is already a really, really strong application.
So our last time we were together, our Land and Sky friends talked about this would open the door for them to hire a new person to kind of help with this. I don't want to put words in their mouth. I think that's what they said. Is it possible to just kind of leave it at that, or do we need to? It sounds like you're saying it would be a stronger application if the county, for example, were to ask for partial funding for staff as well.
If the county was a named partner and named recipient of this funding, I think that would be great.
Okay.
But okay. I do want you to think through, like, okay, if I give you 50% FTV and you can't hire another person, and Jackie can't actually spend 50% of her time on this, then, there's a thing there.
I see. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And Brad?
Well, a couple of things. One, on the FTE and just factor this in, and Land of Sky will have to figure out how to do this, but we've got to put together a proposal that shows fully loaded staff and we get paid by billing NREL for our performance of deliverables under the contract. So we have to structure our work in a way that complies with that. So we're going to have to identify, at least to some extent, a hypothetical person or persons that are doing the work. I don't think we have to say absolutely where they are. We may. And I think we could be a little bit I mean, so there's all of that. I guess my broader question is, it seems to me like we don't really know yet where we want the focus to be. That wouldn't part of NREL coming in be to help us focus it? So that the first year might be some analysis on their part, but quickly we would move to trying to get our people in, whoever we have in the field doing community engagement, to try to push, because we don't wait 3 years to get a report and then start the work when we don't even have any staff. We want to be out doing community engagement early on, it would seem to me.
I think that's right. I do see that, I didn't realize, and I don't know if you've just joined, but Land of Sky is actually on. And so Parker had a question about staffing, and I don't know if you guys wanted to respond to that.
So Brad's right. There's like a form in the proposal that's about a fully burdened labor rate and an expense proposal that has to be cross-aligned with a series of tasks of that task deliverables, which is not in all of the document we've looked at already. So we'll use the information that the team's been writing to kind of synthesize deliverables. But one of the things that has to be a part of this is a stakeholder mapping exercise. It's a requirement for this particular project, as is a community engagement plan. So I sense that part of where we're a little squishy on the who, but can kind of bracket it into some kind of energy user would be strategic for this proposal. And yeah, so we would hire a person, and then if we need to kind of share the load amongst others, we just have to see how far that money can go. And then what they'll have to be assigned to some kind of load. So it's very doable, but it's not as clean. Like, it'll just take some more coordination that we may or may not have time to do right now. So I think a question back to you all is, if there was part of an FTE assigned to like be a liaison and coordinate certain activities in the project on the city and county side, is that something they want to do, are interested in?
I don't know how to make that work, like logistically, a part-time FTE in our department.
I can also chime in. I'm sorry, I switched from the phone. Hi, everybody. Kira from the city of Asheville. I just want to reiterate that in order for us to commit on any level, like even letter of support level, we really need clarity and scope. We need more details on who the partners and what the interaction relationship is. And I hear there's like some chicken and egg conversation, like we have to be able to get the money to be able to figure it out, but also there's so much overlap with current initiatives, and it feels really important for us to have clarity on roles and partners and how it's interacting. Brad, I heard you talking about bringing capacity to the Blue Horizons project, and I know that, and I see that staffing capacity, but I don't understand how the Land of Sky position does that. I don't understand how we deploy this $500,000 over 3 years for who to do what. And I feel, and I know that from the city's perspective, we really need more detail and more clarity on scope and partnership in order to be able to get on board, like formally. Of course, we're on board theoretically.
Well, I think what we might need to do, because we are bumping up on time, is to outline like what the next steps are. And then maybe it sounds like we need to, and Sarah and I had spoke about this, we do need to have a conversation about budget. And I think budget attached to sounds like some specific like tasks in the proposal is what's needed. So like I could see budget items and then like scope of work and, you know, that kind of thing. So should we think about when in the next week or so we can have a more detailed conversation about that?
I'm down. I mean, the county and any local government really has plenty of experience of funding positions partially through grants, you know, so that's something that we do that all the time for accounting purposes. So if it makes the grant application stronger to do that, you know, I'll do everything I can to figure out a way to make that happen on paper.
All right. Well, I think I'll send around like one of those Candly or Doodle scheduling out something, not a Doodle, Doodle's a pin, but a Candly or something like that. And try to get a time that works for Parker, and Sarah and Ian and myself and maybe Jamie. And Kira, do you want to sit in on that as well, or Jackie? In a non-committal manner, but in a place where we can flesh this out a little bit.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, that sounds great. Okay, Sarah, do you want to say anything else? Or Ian?
Yeah.
Okay, does anybody else have any thoughts? Oh, huge one. Letters of support. I know that the Community Outreach and Engagement Committee has been putting some fires in the air, putting some feelers out there, putting some things in the ether. And I wonder if we could do just like a roundup on what the status of letters of support might be.
I'm still working on Asheville Brewers Alliance, but I'm confident that we can make it work.
Right.
You should have one now, Michelle, from Mountain True and Western North Carolina Sierra Club, and we were communicating about Vicky at Just Economics, and I think she's gonna get something together for you.
Cool. And I replied to you, but I didn't reply to her. Are you in her square?
Yeah, I went ahead and kind of sent a summary of what you said to her, so hopefully she knows. I'd love for her to get it to you by the end of this week.
Great. Are there any other ones out there?
Jamie and Keith were going to work on a couple. I don't know where they are.
So I have had a conversation with First Baptist, but I need to go back with them with a draft letter. And I've got a draft letter which Jerry shared through the initiative committee, or it could have been Peter, which I'm gonna take to them. And you know, them being involved with the now idling Project Aspire seemed like it'd be cool or helpful.
I was gonna get one from Greenbelt, and then I was gonna ask Seth for one from Clear Result. I don't see him on here right now, and I don't know if Clear Result does that, but I don't know, maybe.
Has anyone approached the Chamber of Commerce?
We have not. Partially just because of capacity, not because it's great. It would be great.
Yeah. If once we have something that's more distilled, if like pending our timeline, that's a relationship I could probably use.
I think the thing that is pretty, I think we all are pretty close to agreement on that one-page summary that I sent around. And I have a feeling that that is as in-depth as they would want to go. So it's more of these other details about implementation and funding and roles and stuff that we're really needing to hammer out, and data access and all these things that they probably don't need to know. Okay.
Also, Economic Development Council that the city and county appoint people to, the EDC. It's an unruly bunch, but it would be a powerful.
Want to reach out to Park? Are you the liaison for that? I'm not.
It's Al Whitesides. I can ask around.
Cool. Okay, so in the draft, you all have access. You are welcome to comment, mark up, question, insert yourself, fill in gaps for the next 25 hours. And then we're going to stop and we're going to say, we've really worked as hard as we can on this. We're still going to come up with roles and responsibilities and do that budget work. And then it sounds like we do some community mapping, which is totally great. And then we're going to turn it over to Land of Sky, who's going to make it sound like it all came from one person or one voice and add in their expertise and that kind of stuff. I know this has been a little uncomfortable. It's been really quick and I really appreciate everyone's goodwill in trying to figure this out. Like I said, if what happens is that we get a really strong proposal together and we get really great feedback and it takes us 2 years to nail this, I will still be really happy. If we get funded, then we'll just, we'll figure it out. That might not be a comfortable space for everybody, but I think it's important that we get something together and get feedback, if nothing else. All right. Any other thoughts, ideas on that? And Jennifer, thanks for joining. I see you, and I'm going to follow up with you specifically, but you had a question.
I didn't. I was just going to say, yep, I'm here. And I did. I got your email, but I haven't and read through it. I haven't had time to really deep dive and consume, but did want to share that I've been in contact with our data folks. So it sounds like consistent with our previous conversation. Aggregate data, yes, when we start getting down into customer data, it's consistent with what we talked about with customer release information and things like that. I think the action item that I took away from our last conversation was kind of what that definition of aggregate is and how defined it could be. And it has to remain at a level where anonymity of a customer, that you wouldn't be able to kind of do a deep dive into that data and then define the customers as a result. So I know that's not a hard and fast, but I think hopefully it gives enough information that at this stage in the planning, we can define how that data could be used and what the results could be from that. I know that you had said you thought it was a go even without the data, but I just wanted to share that.
Thanks. That's helpful. I think one lingering question, and I don't know how important this will be, and I think some of this can be figured out in partnership with NREL, is would getting like an energy use profile for like a municipality within the county be aggregate data that then would be useful, so you could approach an Arden or Black Mountain or, and say, this is the kind of study work that we have for Asheville we don't have for other places, so that's one question about the definition of aggregate. And let's find a time early next week after the draft is closed for editing. I really want to pull out the data sharing language and provide that for you to work with. And then we can continue to workshop it and share it with your team. And if they want to change it in a specific way, we'll massage it together.
Okay. And I know we're running short on time here, but if we want to go ahead and ask that specific question, I'm happy to do so, but let's flesh it out, whether you mean the profile for the region or specifically for like municipal owned facilities. Then I can go ahead and start running that down.
Yeah, I think because it's aggregate, I'm thinking region. And then if the community sees that and wants to sign a release, then to get their specific data, that would be great. But
okay, great.
Yeah, cool. All right, thank you all for that. We have 10 minutes before we're gonna actually get a proposal or an update on the Western North Carolina modernization plan from Duke, but we need to talk about Electrofair. It's this Saturday. Has everyone registered? Let me get the registration link in the chat for you all. If you have not had a chance, you should probably do that.
I gotcha.
You got it. Thank you, Jamie. It's from 11 to 5. I am hosting a workshop. I hope you all come to on financing. I'm going to pull up some spreadsheets. It's going to be very exciting. No? Okay. It'll still be really nice. If you were wondering about your personal return on investment for a heat pump hot water heater, this is the workshop for you. And there's also a wonderful panel. I think who from the city and the county are going to be on that panel?
The bosses.
Jeremiah and Bridget.
Jeremiah.
Yeah.
I found out they watched the recording. Just careful. Okay. And I think there's some other cool stuff. What else? Jamie, do you want to talk about it? I've been talking so much.
Yeah, I'd be glad to. So the Electric Fair is June 8th, 11 to 5. The event program, exhibitor packet, and social media kit are all on that second link that I put in the chat. If you click through the social media kit, there's stuff if you want to post on your social ready to go for you, which is pretty exciting. For the program, there's some stuff outside. There's like Sugar Hollow Solar's got their solar Dealy Bob, like their house that has the solar hookup, and then there's some EV folks from the EV Club, and there's going to be some electric bikes. I'm pretty pumped about this. We did some sponsorship outreach, easiest fundraising I've ever done. It was like 4 or 5 emails. We've got all these sponsors, which is pretty exciting. Maybe there are a couple of phone calls, but if you build it, they will come, and we were a little nervous, and I think the signups are pretty high. Michelle said 120 or 150, which is exciting. I'm glad about that. If anyone wants to volunteer, there's a couple more slots for that. And when we're there for Let's Go Electric and for Greenbelt, we wanted to do like a couple of like short interviews, like do like a 3-question interview, like very clickbaity, like what's your favorite energy hack? What's the simplest way to do energy in your house? Why do you love your job, to like some of the vendors, and then kind of do a montage on social media afterwards in case people missed it. I'm pretty pumped about Electric Fair. I'm excited it's getting some traction on attendance. If you want to volunteer or register, please do so, and let us know by registering for the event. Did I miss anything?
How many of you are on social media? Yeah, 5, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right. So if we all share this on social media, especially some of you are influencers, I see you out there.
Wait, what?
Rad bike sales are going through the roof. Got cute kids. I see it. I see y'all. Please take a minute, put this on your social media. This is an opportunity for us to help drive the participation in this event. And I think that's really, if they build it, we got to get them there. So let's do it. And please take a minute just to do that, because it's Wednesday, which means people are looking to figure out what they're going to do this weekend right now. So
I'm going to put our social media in the chat, and then you can just reshare what we've already done if you want to.
And Jamie, you have access to all the names and emails of the people who have registered, or
somebody does. I bet it would be Emily or Sophie.
okay, but is BHP asking for that for future outreach?
Yes. Well, we're going to add it to the BHP email list.
Okay,
and then send them an email and be like, hey, you're on this list now. Is that cool? And they can opt out.
Okay, cool.
the other thing about Electrify is that there is a call for neighborhood captains. I think there was a neighborhood captain event that was scheduled for like 9 a.m. on a Thursday. So not a huge level of participation there. And Emily sent out another email asking for folks to sign up as neighborhood captains. Did you guys see that email?
Yeah, the one that she was going to have by Zoom ended up getting canceled. I guess they didn't have enough people sign up. But there is another one out that, the way I read it, it said, we're going to have a get together sometime, but I'm not sure when it is yet, if I read it correctly.
I think there might have been a Google, like a doodle poll or something in that one. I think it's great that if everybody wants to participate, that's wonderful, but how can we encourage people? We all know them. There's a lot of activists in our community who would be really wonderful as community captains, and they're not already serving on the BHPCC. So maybe we can help Emily do some recruitment for that by like thinking of those folks, right? Thinking of Sherry Vaughn right now. You guys know Sherry? Those people that have just like a lot of energy. they're, you know, often organizing one thing or another. And maybe we can use our network to help get some more community signups. So if you haven't, I'm going to send that email out to the BHPCC and our extended, there's like this, you know, list of people that have served on a subcommittee or are currently serving on a subcommittee. So I'm just going to send that to everyone to see if we can get some more signups for community captains. Does anybody else have any ideas about how to recruit for community captains?
I guess this is a partisan statement to some extent, but the most organized people at the neighborhood street level that I've ever met are connected to and related to the Democratic Party and its various bureaucracies, precincts, and those people have meetings all the time. You can find them on the calendar, on the website that you might imagine the name of. So that's one place to go and to speak to those types of people. So that's just one idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I know in Kenilworth we have like a Kenilworth board that meets I think once a month, and we do different community fairs and like, I don't know, they organize quite a bit of cleanups in the neighborhood. And I know they're already volunteering their time to be on that board, but that's a way to get in touch with people that are already involved in the community from Kenilworth. And I'm assuming that each community has its own gathering of sorts on a quarterly or monthly basis. So I know Jim has that very large, incredible neighborhood spreadsheet. We could just name someone in each of those areas. Be really valuable. And obviously we can take on our own areas, I would hope.
There's these like subsidized energy audits that are in the Bright Spaces contract, and it's supposed to be reserved for folks who are income qualified in the moderate income area. But I wonder if we can say like, you get one if you're income qualified and you're willing to like post on Nextdoor a certain amount of times or do a community presentation. So a free energy audit to incentivize some of that work.
Ooh, I like that. Or even like a free, like, okay, so if you're not income qualified, you couldn't do that, right?
Well, I mean, the income qualification now is like up to 150% AMI. Yeah, so it's not super exclusive. I don't know, it's just a thought.
This is a good idea. I also like the idea of just a t-shirt. Like if you get an electrified t-shirt, if you become a neighborhood captain, right? The audit is cooler, but I wonder, you know, if you're not eligible, then and people with disposable time may not be eligible. So who knows? But okay. I think maybe there is a meeting of the electrified folks on Monday. Maybe we could bring up that to them, and I'll look at when the prospective community captain event might take place to see if there's time to get out some more communications around that as well. Or maybe Jamie or someone else can, someone from the team should. All right, I think it's time for our presentation from Casey and Jennifer. Are you guys ready to roll?
Casey, are you there?
I'm coming. Yeah. Can you guys hear me?
Hey. I can hear you. I hope everybody else can hear you.
See if my video starts at some point. Oh yeah, we're here. Good.
There we go. All right. Can everybody, I didn't hear any from anybody else. Jamie, Michelle, can you guys hear both of us?
Yes.
Or Casey and I just talking to each other?
No, we can hear you.
All right, great. Excellent. Well, I appreciate the accommodation to moving us to late in this meeting so that both Casey and I could be present. I think I know everybody on the call. If not, my name is Jennifer Bennett. I'm the Government Community Relations Manager for Duke Energy in this region. I came to this region in June of last year. So right at going on about a year. There is a lot that's gone on in that time. There was a whole lot that went on before that time. So I've come up to speed. But also Casey is joining me, who has a lot of expertise and history in this area. And Casey, I'll put to you to introduce yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the time today. Casey Fields with Duke Energy. I am the regulatory lead for North Carolina on all of our DSM-EE programs, basically strategizing on how to implement those and get those in line with what the Utilities Commission is looking for us to do from an EE DSM perspective. Also, as Jamie knows, I now run the DSM-EE Collaborative as my counterpart recently left the company. So that's a group of engaged stakeholders from across mainly the Southeast, but sometimes nationally, that wants to hear about how we're doing our DSM-EE program. So appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks, Casey. So I'm going to share my screen. And as everybody knows, we are a Teams platform. So I thought I had this. Here we go. Hold on. All right. Am I there?
I got you.
Yep.
Everybody can see the screen. Excellent. So in talking to Michelle and Jamie lately, I think we realized that we were probably overdue for an update, and for a lot, it's an update. And then realizing too, that there's some people at the table where this might be an initial overview of the Western Carolina Modernization Project and the projects that have come to the table subsequently in Buncombe County, Western North Carolina, as a result of those efforts. So that is what this is. I hope that if you have questions, if they are project related, we're actually going to talk through all the projects that we have in the works right now from a renewable perspective in Buncombe County. But feel free to ask questions, and then we'll make sure that we leave some time at the end for some questions as well. So we'll jump right in. And again, let me make sure I know how to advance this. Oh, all right. I feel like in any conversation that we talk about project implementation, we're remiss if we don't talk about expected load growth. And if you've heard anybody from Duke Energy lately speak, this has probably been a part of the conversation. And it is the increase in our expected load in the coming years. And not just the increase, but the increase from the expected increase. So you'll see here that Duke Energy's load growth is projected to surge by about 58,000 gigawatt hours over the coming 15 years. And so that's large for us. You'll see, to put context to it, that's Delaware, Hawaii, Maine, New Hampshire, and Wyoming combined. And it is a drastic increase from what we expected to see just 2 years ago in our planning. And so you have seen, I know a lot of you follow our filings, our carbon plans, our amendments. You have seen updates according to that too, to account for that expected load growth. And I think that that is important to keep in mind as we go forward and talk about the projects that we have in Western North Carolina. But real quick, we'll talk about the Western Carolina Modernization Project itself. And I know there are people on this call who lived this, who were here for it, who were involved in the Energy Innovation Task Force, which was the initial iteration, essentially. I see you, Brad, and a couple of other folks as well. That was essentially the precursor to the Blue Horizons Project Community Council efforts. This group came together. The city sat at the table, the Duke Energy sat at the table, the county sat at the table, with a number of additional stakeholders to work through what the Western Carolina Modernization Project would look like and really move the needle and efforts on energy efficiency, DSM, and stuff that Casey is going to talk about towards the end of this presentation. But I wanted to point out a couple of things that essentially there were two iterations that you saw of the modernization plan. And the first iteration included transmission lines, and it did not go forward. So there was feedback on that plan. We stopped, we regrouped, we listened. The EINT or EITF was formed. And we really looked at how can we meet this region's goals for energy? How can we modernize, as well as focus on renewables and clean energy. So you saw two things that I want to point come out of that plan, and that is a commitment to 15 megawatts of solar installation in Western North Carolina and 5 megawatts of utility scale storage in Western North Carolina. Another thing that you saw come out of the order on the Western Carolina Modernization Project filing was that we would file an annual report on the status of the projects as well as the status of the EE projects and efforts here in Western North Carolina. So I am going to move along. If you haven't been to the station, and you know, of course, it's a secure facility for us, but this is what the new station looks like. So today, what it looks like is a converted plant. The old plant was torn down, a new plant constructed in its place. It has 560 megawatt capacity. That's the peak winter capacity. And that's obtained through 2 units, 2 power block units. Primary fuel is natural gas. Both of those units have backup gas capabilities, and it supports our baseload needs here in Western North Carolina. Okay. So I'm going to move these through these projects, and if we want to stop and talk about a specific project, we can do that, but I just want to make sure that we have time to talk to all of them. And my picture on my screen is frozen. I'm not frozen, am I? You can see me?
Your
Okay.
video is exciting frozen, but the presentation continues as planned.
Jamie, that's how I always look in that frozen video. That's just my natural state. Okay. So let's start with the Rock Hill Neighborhood Battery Energy Storage Project. And I think it's important to start with this one because it's on the ground. It's been installed. If you're familiar with the Rock Hill neighborhood, it is just south of 40. And this site was completed in 2020. It was distribution tied, so meaning that it supports the distribution grid. And it's 8.8 megawatts. And I think that this is a classic battery install. We actually use this picture a lot of times when we talk about new battery storage projects. While you see evolution in the site design and layout, this is pretty typical as to what we're going to find. Of course, we're going to talk about some projects that are different sizes, different megawatts. So of course, a larger megawatt project, like a 30 megawatt project, would be substantially larger than this. But as far as what you see on the site, this is going to be pretty consistent. Okay. The Riverside Battery Energy Storage System. Is this anybody up to speed on this on their radar? Excellent. Okay. So Elk Mountain Road and Riverside Drive, if that puts context to it. The MSD facility is right there. It's just to the east of the river. So the river would be down in here. Elk Mountain kind of goes up into Woodfin, and this is kind of the main drag through here. Water treatment facility over here. So there is an existing substation. This is a distribution tied battery. This is an existing substation with infrastructure lines kind of coming out and going up the Elk Mountain line. And we have CPC in, of course, for that, but special use permit as well. And we're scheduled to begin work on this battery site in this year. And so you'll see, you've actually seen a little bit of work out there, just kind of pre-work to that site. But we are headed into construction. 4.6 megawatts. And it also, like all the projects that we're going to talk about, will support the day-to-day operations of the grid. Again, this one is tied to the distribution system. This square it's a representation. So it's kind of actually up on this hill a little bit right here, but it would be accessed through the same drive as our substation. Okay. So the next battery storage project that we have coming right on the hills of Riverside Drive is the Craggy Battery Energy Storage System. This site is located also in Woodfin. So we've got a lot of work going on in Woodfin that you're going to piece together through this presentation. And it is, I'm trying to put context to it, not long after you turn onto Olivet Road. It's down on the right at our existing transmission substation that has been there for quite a long time. It's also located on Duke Energy property, and it'll be 31 megawatts, or approximately 31 megawatts after implementation. It will support day-to-day operations, but through the transmission system, the existing Duke Energy transmission system. And we expect work to begin, like physical work to begin on this project in 2025. Once again, we have a special use permit issued for this project, And so we'll see movement on this, hopefully not long after the new year. Yep. Okay. Can you still see my screen?
Yes.
Yep.
Excellent. Okay, so we'd be remiss, of course, not to talk about Woodfin Solar Site. And we're kind of going in order now from an area perspective, because this site is also complete and we are in the testing phase. So this site's located on 25 acres of retired landfill space, which made it a really interesting build for our teams. So capped landfill, there's no ground penetration there. So this entire site is built without penetrating the ground, essentially, on ballast, on conduit boxes, things like that. Even the fencing around the site, you'll see once you're on site that it is all above ground. This site was possible because of the partnership with Buncombe County. So of course, because it's capped landfill, it's their property that we lease from them. And it allows the county to reach approximately 20% of its 2030 renewable energy goals with this local renewable energy source. We are done with construction here, and we are in the testing phase, which, as you can imagine, can take us a little while. So we're looking forward to this being online and doing a really cool, hopefully ribbon cutting and information out there. But this will be something that you continue to hear about and hear more about as we move towards that, and it's in service. So we're really excited about this project. All right. Last but not least, the Asheville Energy Complex. So this is at the existing site where the new station was constructed. And it uses a large portion of the property there, and its solar and battery storage will be co-located on that facility. It's expected to be about 9.5 megawatts of solar and 17.3 megawatts of battery storage. Like I said, it's co-located at that existing facility, which is excellent with the existing infrastructure that is located there. And we're expecting to also start construction on this project in 2025. So let me pause right there before we jump into EE programs and measures, Casey, if you don't mind. I know I went through that quickly, but like I said, I just wanted to make sure we had time to talk about it and take any questions or conversation or otherwise about the physical projects that we've got going on in Buncombe County right now. Nobody? No questions? Okay. All right. We can always, of course, circle back to questions about these projects, at the end of the presentation if anybody has any questions. Okay. Casey, I'm going to jump into yours.
All right. So looking at some of the lift that we did from a demand response and energy efficiency perspective, we had the action with the program teams, a lot of our programs, to go to Asheville to do our programs in the area and have a hyper focus on reducing their KWH and also bringing them onto our demand response program to reduce the KW. We've got also a pilot that was filed in the Buncombe County area. That was the pay performance pilot. That was based on feedback that we received from your community that wanted to do something a little bit more for the income qualified customers. After that pilot finished, it ended with the required participants and the EM&V results from that. Some of the feedback we got from the collaborative was they wanted larger incentives for organizations to do this work. A pay performance pilot and that kind of mentality pays a certain percent depending on how much KWH you might save there. And so we switched that model into let's just give greater incentives for this target market, which is the income qualified market. So we filed, as a result of this pilot, the DEP weatherization program, and that is in place now and being rolled out to interact with agencies, weatherization agencies. But one of the lessons learned from this pilot was that we should not just tie this directly to just state weatherization approved agencies. We should also include our nonprofits into this. And so where we have nonprofits that can demonstrate that they have quality audit and energy efficiency audits, and then the ability to either hire contractors and doing it at a reasonable price, will bring on nonprofits. And so I thought that was a good lessons learned that we got from this pilot that then led us into a full-fledged weatherization program. Looking at the kind of targets of where we are from 2017 to 2023, we did generally see about a 25% increase of the impacts of our participation of our KWH savings of these programs specific to the DEP West region, which seems like it was a pretty good action, something that's been focused point on marketing and going to do door knocks. And then on the last part, when we were looking at our demand response programs, that has been more boots on the ground, knocking on doors and trying to get annual enrollments into the DR programs. The interesting thing here is as we started rolling out more demand response, we brought on smart thermostats in 2020, 2021 as an opportunity. And so a lot more people started participating. But in general, around the 22 timeframe, the 2022 timeframe, DEP West, we found, makes up about 34% of the overall actions of winter KW against the whole jurisdiction, the whole DEP jurisdiction. So I thought that was an interesting data point to share today. I think the customer comparison between DEP West is about 9-10% or so, but 34% of our winter KW, you guys make up about 34% of that. So I thought that was an interesting data point from that perspective. And that is what I have on the DSM-EE side of things.
Thanks, Casey. I'm trying to get my video back on, but any questions for Casey about EE measures that we have going on? Were we too fast?
Have we absolutely maximized the capacity of this program, like from a regulatory perspective, or can we push harder?
We're always going to push harder.
But I mean, like from our perspective, I feel like we talk a lot about like new technologies and things that we want to do, but it's like I think we forget like, hey, there's stuff here we could do now, and so I'm just wondering if there's capacity.
There is. So I don't know if many are aware, but we just recently had an approved mechanism come through where we'll be able to look at system benefits a little bit differently than we have in the past. And so the program teams right now are looking at overall what increased incentives they will be able to offer from both the DR and the energy efficiency side of things. So I expect to see increased incentives for these programs, which generally will drive participation. If I had to throw that out the door and just say, are we maximizing everything that we can do and are doing here? I think my answer has to be yes at this point, unless you can come at me with something a little bit different. There are ongoing marketing and there are targeted areas that we try to work through throughout the year. So we're not trying to focus in one area at a given time. We're trying to spread that out so we get the maximized amount of participants. Jamie, I don't know if that is getting at what you're thinking, but I think the increased incentives are really going to be a major driver of this, as it should be.
Casey, I have a question. Have the programs you're talking about been oriented at all to group living situations, i.e. continuing care communities or other large users that might have many different meters, but have one consolidated use pattern? Or are you primarily aimed at residential customers, individual residential customers?
It's not just residential. We have a whole other non-res team that would, I think, handle facilities like that. Jennifer, I might ask if you know more from that, like an account manager perspective, how that outreach might be going on.
Right. Yeah, and I couldn't speak to the details or the results of it, but I think, Gerald, so what Casey, I think you're referring to is we have large account managers who handle large account users. And, several of our communities here in Buncombe County are covered by them. But then we also have products and services managers and kind of going back to Casey's world that then work on multifamily living. I'm not sure. That's a great question of which one that would fall under. I think ultimately it would flow through your large account manager into the products and services world of multi-family residents, and those products and services, which does have energy efficiency measures, both for communal living spaces as well as the individual residents.
I don't hear from the staff at Givens Estates anything about what you're offering in that way, so I don't know that they know about it. I've been asking them to get better data from you in terms of usage so we could get a handle on things, which they haven't responded yet to a letter I've sent them recently to send off to your account manager.
Well, and that is, I think we go back into the data question that we were talking about with the NREL grant is, private data, releasing individual private data to someone other than a customer. So
but we're asking this to be released to the customer, which is Givens Estates, and thereby could be shared with people on the campus that how we could work to save money, save usage.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe, and I don't know every facility structure as like the large account manager would, but if residents are individually metered, then we wouldn't be able to turn information over to the given. It would have to go to that individual customer, if that makes sense.
Well, they aren't.
It seems like
some of the things are individually metered, some aren't.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I have another question though, Jennifer, on the battery storage and solar projects you're developing in Buncombe County. Are they all owned by Duke Energy, or are they some of them co-developed with solar developers who you then would buy power from?
No, all the projects that we've discussed today are Duke Energy owned and operated, and permitted under the NCUC and then the regulatory body over the property. But they are all Duke Energy projects.
Okay, they're Duke Energy projects, both in terms of ownership and operations.
Correct.
You're going to own and operate, not somebody else operate and you buy the power.
Correct.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Keith. I think you had your hand up. I didn't see.
Yeah, I'm just curious. What percentage of customers take advantage of these programs? I mean, because ideally you'd think that you'd want 100% of your customers or something like that to take advantage. But when I talk to people there, of the people on my street, it's only 7 houses. Only 2 houses out of those 7 take advantage of these programs. And that's, of course, on the residential level, but I'm wondering if it's on commercial and there are more. How many homes, businesses take advantage of some of your many programs?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's a little bit nuanced. So we have our My Home Energy report, which pretty much goes to every customer within the service territory. So that's near 100% participation. You get a report on your usage, it compares you to your neighbors, and then it tells you how you can do better, basically, if you're showing a little bit different. So let's say near about 100% on that. On that is also then kind of saying, hey, you should maybe take advantage of X, Y, and Z programs. And so that would be that avenue and that conduit to get them into our programs. Now, from there, you have a variety of programs that you can participate, not all that you're going to be eligible for. And so that's a little bit more difficult to explain. I mean, our home energy house call right now is only eligible to single family homeowners. If you're a renter, you cannot participate in that because the actions that we'll suggest to you on home energy house call, you will not be able to, most likely as a renter, to do those upgrades yourselves. Because we're going to look up in your crawl space and we're going to say, hey, you need to seal up that door, you need to put some more attic insulation in there. And the renter's going to say, I'm not doing that, I don't own the house. And so we've limited that from being a participant so far. So I can't tell you that home energy house call is going to be anywhere near 100% for that basis of the overall residential base. Going down into weatherization programs, our low income programs, you have really a set of customers that are being driven mostly by how they engage with their community action agency or their nonprofit. And that is limited by them being able to take applications and run them through to the full process of a retrofit. We have tried to do outbound mailers to these customers who we think are income qualified that identify as higher energy use to say, hey, it seems like you might be eligible to participate in this. That does not always translate into participation, though. And so there are going to be varying percentages there depending on the program, but that's kind of just a general flavor there of how that works with some of the programs.
Great. So, but it sounds like there's opportunity to increase those percentages through just programming and helping people understand better.
Yeah, and some of that too, yes. I mean, always increased marketing, outbound communications. I know we just released something called Service Navigator, which allows a customer who wants to do either EV related issues, solar issues, energy efficiency, demand response. They can go through to something called Service Navigator online. They can type in their account number. They'll answer a couple of questions, and then on the back end, it spits out what they're eligible for. That's something that we've not had in the past year or so. I would say that's probably our next step, is making sure that we put the customer down the right path of what they're eligible for. Otherwise, if we're trying to give very targeted marketing, let's say for say a set of customers who run gas heat, but we try to give them Energy Wise Home as a DR program, that there's going to be zero participation. They'll be ineligible to participate because we can't use their heater from a gas perspective. That doesn't generate any load reductions on our end. So it's really difficult to say that there's like a one size fits all for the whole customer base. You really need the customer to know that there's a service out there they can go to and self-identify, and then it tells them what their path is moving forward. That's how I would maybe approach that from a customer perspective.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have another question for Jennifer about the expansion of the plant at Lake Julian, and I think it's 9.5 milliwatts of anyway, the solar. Is that all ground-based solar? I had heard a rumor that there was some thought about doing floating stuff on the lake.
All of the Duke Energy projects are ground-based solar, so that's would be as, and I think I can put it back up.
And where on the plant location would that ground-based be? The other thing I'd heard is that you were basically going to go over whatever the residual capped slag area was.
Currently not planned to be on capped.
Yeah.
So it would be in not the capped landfill area, and I can't recall the term of the basin, but the area as you kind of go down the highway to the left, in the big open grassy area. In the cleared out basin, if you will.
So is it going to be visible from a public point?
Will it be visible from a public? I'm sure there will be mutation where it would be.
It's basically from a public road. I mean, will you be able to see it? I mean, I've driven by the one in Woodfin, and I can see part of it.
Yeah, there will be yes, there will be areas that you would be able to see portions of that project.
Okay.
I wanted to kind of reframe what I asked before, Casey. I get that y'all are maximizing y'all's outreach, and mine was more of a challenge to the council, and Land of Sky Regional Council is also like the MPO for the region, and it's like we have broad networks, and it's like how can we do a better job of promoting the resources that Duke has available? And I'd like to see this body like kind of like focus on that. It's like how do we like maximize the Duke incentives that are coming to Western North Carolina, and how do we maximize the IRA benefits that we can get? And so I guess it was more of a challenge to the whole group instead of like, hey, Duke, you should try harder to do outreach. So I just wanted to reframe that a bit.
Well, I mean, to your point, Jamie, I think even at the AVL Beer Week, there were several brewers that were really surprised to hear about Alicia speak about all of Duke's incentives. And I spoke to Alicia about this, and she's going to send some follow-up materials. But they were like, how can we get this all on a one pager? We just want links and bullets to what's available to us. And I don't care if it's pretty, just send it to me. Cause I don't, I mean, when Andrew from Wicked Weed started talking about everything that they were leveraging, I think the guy from Rad was like, wait, what? I could be doing that too. So, I mean, that's what that event was also about. And if, just for the brewing industry alone, if we could just get that one pager, like I think for different sectors from a, business side, that would be very beneficial. Not easy to do because there are so many that could be applicable, but like the main ones.
I think that's a great
I think
point.
we do have a one pager that we can provide there. So
thank you.
Well, the other thought that I have is, with all of these energy efficiency things with your home and with your programs, it's really hard to get people to re-engage because maybe they engaged 10 years ago when there was a different set of programs and they're like, okay, I did that. And so that's another thing which you need as part of the education, I think, is that getting people to reopen that box because you've got different tools, different technologies, things like that, which I have to do myself, I think.
Yeah, Measure Lives are always an interesting conversation because I think people forget, and program teams recognize this, people forget that if you install weather stripping around a door, that isn't going to live for the lifetime of that door. It's going to go bad after about 7 years. And I think engaging them to understand that, hey, these things aren't always going to last as long as you need to is an important message. That MyHerd to a certain extent is supposed to be doing that, but it might be missing some of those elements that we can take a look at.
These are all just really wonderful. Thank you all for the presentation and for the opportunity to think through how we're being a partner and helping disseminate information. I wonder if does the BHP, when we table, do we carry maybe a version, the one pager you were talking about, Casey, and one for commercial? Because
we have WRP stuff. I think most of our Duke stuff is residential. So it would be worthwhile to get some of the commercial stuff. And Alicia Rader needs to be on our board. I can call her and talk to her team and kind of get it from her.
wonderful. And then of course, if we get this grant, I think there'll be increased opportunities to build off of what you guys are already doing. So appreciate your support on that as well.
Absolutely. And Jamie, I'm happy to, I know you've got Alicia's information. But let me know if you need support in that. I'm happy to also facilitate the ask.
I can do that. I just prefer an excuse to call Alicia because I like her. So I like you too. I'll give you a call.
Hey, I appreciate it. She's great. And Mike, she had wonderful feedback about that event. And I think that's part of our strategy too, is getting the right people in the right spaces. And so, being the conduit to help put that team at that space where it makes sense, or to put, our weatherization, Jamie, like Juanita and her team, in spaces and public spaces that make sense. And so we really try to capitalize on that when we're able to get them. Not all those teams sit locally. We're really lucky to have Alicia, and now there's a second person on that team here in the region, which really helps, I think, in the public space and being accessible. So, that is a huge resource for us as a company. Some of our teams come out of Charlotte, but are willing to travel if we can work it out.
Well, thank you for helping sponsor the event. Really appreciate it.
Of course.
I think we are at time. I do want to take, I think everyone from public may have had a chance to comment, but we should offer at least one opportunity for public comment or any additional comments from the committee, any announcements that you'd like to make. It's also a good time to do that before we adjourn.
I would request a little more time on the next agenda for the equity task force. Some exciting stuff happened last time. We should talk about that next time.
Sorry, Jamie.
That's okay. This is great. It's like we had so much content to cover. We can just push it to the next one.
Is there anything you want us to know? Any upcoming dates we should keep in mind?
There's nothing scheduled, but they're really excited about bringing council members or getting council members to community events to do listening instead of talking. And so we should talk more about what that looks like. Ed and Seth joined Hannah and Kelvin from our staff at the Equity Task Force. And it was an exciting meeting, lots of fieriness. And so like the outcome from that was like, how do we do a better job? Like we talk a lot. How do we do a better job bringing back the listening from the community? So, so we can talk about that more. I would love it if Anthony or London from the committee would come and talk, and they said they were going to be able to today, and they were not. So I'll try to get them to the next one.
Okay, let's put that as the presentation, because I think when it's at the end of the agenda, it gets.
Yeah. Well, yeah, let's do it.
Okay, great. All right, I'll see y'all on Saturday at Electrofair. I'll be riding my rad bike over there. I just got a new one. You could ride it around if you want. Test drive the rad Rover. Anyway, thank you all. And we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Casey.
everyone.
Thanks, Jennifer. Thank you, everybody else.
Thank
Yep,
you.
thank you all.
Thanks for having us.